what legendary players do. Kobe Bryant broke his fucking hand, and he did that. That's what legendary players do. LeBron, legendary, 3-1 comeback, came back. Kevin Durant got his foot on the line, went into overtime. He didn't score, bro. He didn't put up no buckets. Stop calling that man legendary because he won with Steph Curry, the greatest shooter ever, Klay Thompson, a top 3 shooter ever. Stop calling that, because when Westbrook went down, he got smoked out by Memphis. When they played the Spurs, he got smoked out. When they went up against Golden State, he blew a 3-1 lead. He choked. Legendary, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, even fucking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Magic Johnson as a rookie.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the, the wacky build series. I've got the 20k health build, I've got the immunity build, and now we have a 100% stun resist build. The inspiration for this build came from a Wiz YouTuber I used to watch a lot back today, Hyga. He made a 100% stun resist build, but the problem with that build was it was mostly PvP gear. He was getting most of the stun resist from PvP gear, and a lot of those pieces are now retired. They're inaccessible, so I wanted to make a stun resist build that was not only not using PvP gear, but also free-to-play friendly. This build is entirely free-to-play friendly. So while I don't recommend you get it for your own self, because the stats aren't that great, I tried to make the stats as best as I could. But yeah, so let's go into the build. I've got the equipment set here. I'm gonna swap to it. I'm gonna take off my mount. This is the stitch I chose for it, not too bad, but we can pop the potion, and we can see immediately we have 9,000 health, which is pretty good. I would say a lot of that health is just coming from being level 180. But yeah, these are the stats. For a 180 build, the stats aren't that great. If I had dealer on the pet, then I would have exactly 100% damage, which would make it look a little cleaner, but I just couldn't get dealer on the pet. I tried really hard to get dealer on the pet. For resist, we're at 39. Accuracy, we do have perfect accuracy. And then moving to the advanced character stats, we have a measly 184 crit, 200 block, 16 pierce, but we do have 102% stun resistance, which means that if we were to get stunned, we just block it. We say nope, and we don't get stunned. And we actually do have 1,000 pip conserve, which is 88%, which for like a support build is actually kind of cool, because if you're using things like, if you're using things like Blade Storm or Elemental Blades or Mana Burns, you can conserve them fairly consistently. And then of course we do have 100% power pip and a decent amount of Arch Mastery. I will say the biggest struggle for this build was getting the max power pip and the max accuracy. I wanted to make sure that for this build it was perfect in the sense that you could not fizzle and also not pip fail. So with this build you can cast all of your balance spells and you guarantee power pips every single turn. So with that being said, let's go into the gear. So starting off with the hat, we have the Thought and Memory Helm. This is a hat that drops from the Winterbane Gauntlet. I got it from Tierfing. It's the first boss that you fight. The drop wasn't even on the wiki, so I was kind of just operating on hope that so for context, the hat, robe, and boots are all from the Winterbane Gauntlet, and they all drop from Tierfing, but only the boots were on the wiki. So I was kind of just hoping that the hat and robes did based on the lower level drop tables. But yeah, so for this you're rocking the Thought and Memory Helm, which gives a 19% stun resist, as well as a decent amount of other stats. You have 5% res, 8% damage, health, pip chance, and then crit. Obviously though, it's nothing compared to your level 180 gear with the Doomed set. But yeah, so that's the hat. I also will say there's not really any alternatives you can use. Basically, I had to choose each piece for this set based on the available stun resist gear on the wiki. And other than Crown's gear, like gear that comes from a pack, these are pretty much the only pieces that you can use. So yeah, that's the Thought and Memory Helm. And then moving on to the robe, we have the Raven King's Battle Story Armor. Same situation as the hat. This drops from Tierfing in the Winterbane Hall. It gives 24% stun resist, and then a little bit of universal res, universal damage, universal block, pip chance, and a little bit of health. And also it gives a Legion shield, which is pretty fun, and then this gives an Ice Blade. So technically I should have made this build on an ice, but for the ice I already have the immunity build, So I wanted to try and spread out the like wacky builds that I have on all my characters. So yeah, I just did this on the balance. Moving on to the boots, we have the Boots of Whispered Flight. These are, again, a Winterbane Hall piece of gear. They drop from Tierfing, and they have 19% stun resist, a little bit of universal res, universal damage, universal accuracy, pip chance, and then some health. And they also give an Ice Zilla for 5 pips, which, I mean, honestly, not bad. Don't think you'd ever really use it, though. And so yeah, those are the 3 main pieces of gear that make up our 100% stun block. We have a 19. 19 is 38 plus 24 would get us 62%. And so, as you can probably assume, the rest of our stun block comes from jewels and the pet. So let's go over to the wand. We are using Jackie's Focus Bow. We're basically using any revered wand that we can use because it gives double square sockets. And you can put stun resist on both of those for 10%. There's only a couple other double square socket wands, but I believe this is the only free-to-play option. I know the spooky throwing knife has double square sockets, but the revered wands are the only free-to-play option, as far as I'm aware, that give the double square. And these are crafted by Ignis. So there's the legendary version, which is the first version that you have, and then there's the focused version, which has the flying squid ink and the aether ore. Moving on to the Athame, this is kind of where the struggle in balancing the pip chance and accuracy and the stun resist comes in. We are using the Stalker knife. This is the Reaver alternate. You could also use the A-bomb alternate, which is Monster Hide. You basically just want this jewel spread, which is tier, circle, square, triangle. On the triangle, you want to put pip chance, and then on the square, you want to put stun resist. And then in the circle, I've got pierce. If I really wanted to, I could put damage and just forgo all the pierce and just go for straight damage. But I wanted to try and make it as close to a max build as possible. So trying to prioritize some pierce while getting your other stats. But yeah, so I went with the Stalker knife. It gives a lot of health, a good amount of pip chance, and then also some good damage. I was trying to play around with the stats a little bit. And I was hoping I could end up going with something like this, but it just didn't really work out with the pets that I have. If you had a pet with like Pipoplenty, you could just run your normal Athame, but I wasn't gonna try and make a super custom pet with like Recalcitrant, Pip, and like Sniper or anything. So yeah, that's just the easiest way for me to do it, is by getting the Stalker knife and then having everything kind of balance on the jewels. Moving on to the amulets, I'm actually just running my normal amulet. It's the A-bomb amulet. I have damage and accuracy socketed. This accuracy is what's helping me get to that 100% accuracy on all my spells, and the damage is just good. Before, I was going to be rocking the Eternal Abstruse charm, which has the double square socket for your stun resist, but with how the math kind of checks out, you don't really need it. So I just opted to use my normal amulet to preserve as many good stats as possible. This amulet drops from the Hierophant fight in Black Lagoon or Black Lake. It's one of those two in Darkmoor. Moving on to the ring, I'm just using the Reaver ring. You could also use your regular ring. You would just have to swap the health out for stun resist. You basically just want one square jewel to put stun resist on. I just had my Reaver ring left over, like I didn't trash it or anything, so I just took out the health jewel and put stun resist on it. And yeah, this drops from I think Freddy Croker in The Dreaming in Wallaroo, and then this drops from Sister Sanderson in Graveholm. It's a side quest fight in Darkmoor. I'm gonna skip over the pet for now, and mount, you can use whatever mount you want. The rock mount doesn't really help, just the way that the pip chance kind of checks out, because you'll be a few percentage points off. So I just use whatever mount. So I have this one, which is just my normal mount. And then for the deck, I am rocking the Stalker deck. You basically just want any square jewel deck, and the Stalker deck was the easiest for me to get. It's the alternative to the Reaver deck, which you get from Mr. Montgomery. And then you could also just use the Monster Hide deck, which is the alternative for the A-bomb deck, which drops from the Greyman Golden fight in Graveholm. But I only have the one A-bomb deck, so I wanted to keep that with my Pierce Jewel. And I had a lot of these Reaver decks, so I just made one of them a Stalker deck. Now the final piece of the puzzle, like most of my builds, is the pet. I spent this morning and like an hour last night trying to make the perfect pet. I got as close as I could, and I have a few options for the pet. So I'll just show you the one that I have equipped now, which is the one I'm rocking with the build. And that is a double resist, double stun, Maycast Fortify, and then a Balance Giver pet. Ideally, this would be Dealer, and this could be, I don't know, Mighty for the extra resist. Like, this is just the pet that I got. But yeah, it gives 50% stun resist, 15% regular resist, and then some damage. But luckily for me, it's on the Balance Hamster, so I actually get my Sharpened Blade and my regular blade. And yeah, this was just a mix of using a bunch of P9s that I had from Pet Promenade and hatching with myself and a pet in the kiosk, which leads me to this pet. This is the other pet that I made, which has Proof, Dealer, Double Stun, Sniper, and Fortify. And the reason I was going for Sniper was because I was trying to find a way to not need the accuracy jewel on my amulet. And so with this pet, you have just enough to get over the accuracy while keeping your pip chance, while keeping your stun resist. So technically with this pet, I could rock whatever amulet that I wanted. But in the end, that didn't really end up mattering because I had this pet. And I wanted to prioritize the resist more than anything. I wanted to make this a semi-support build, and so you'd want a lot of resist for that. But this is as close to high resist as I could get is 39, which is not that high. And that's because there's just not a lot of resist on this gear. But if you want this pet for some reason, it'll be in the kiosk. If you want to make a double stun pet, it's there. The jewels are actually really easy to come by. And by jewels, I mean the stun jewels. This stun recalcitrant comes from Novus. The jewel vendor there has the stun recalcitrant opal. And then in Lemuria, in Talos, the jewel vendor there has stun resistant, which is the 5%. So you can get the jewels pretty easily. I was almost considering just slapping recalcitrant on this pet and just calling it a day so I didn't have to put in any effort. But then I was like, okay, no, I'll try and optimize the build as much as I can, which is what led me to this pet and this pet. But yeah, that honestly about does it for this build video. I hope you don't make this build. Please don't make this build. It's awful. Only a madman should be having a 100% stun resist build. But if there's a use case for it in the future, maybe my balance will be using it. And yeah, I hope you learned something about gear sets. I hope you learned that this gear all drops from Tierfing, even though it doesn't say that in the wiki. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.